If you've ever wondered whether modern naval fights are decided by missiles or by minutes, this clip will change how you think. I'll show you how the Hudner didn't win because it had more weapons. It won because its network moved faster than the attack cycle. From the first satellite cue to the final phalanx burst, we'll walk the kill chain and the timing that made it work. By the end, you'll see why integrated beats armed when Mach 3 comes skimming in. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. A missile you can't see until it's almost on top of you. So how did Hudner see it in time? Start with what that threat actually is. The KH-31A is a ramjet anti-ship missile that sprints at more than Mach 3. It finishes low, riding the surface where the Earth's curve hides it. At that height, ship radar doesn't get a clean look until the missile crests the radar horizon, which means your timeline shrinks fast. Its seeker can lock before or after launch, so the shooter can hold emissions and keep the ship guessing. With a warhead sized to break a destroyer's sensors and topside gear, you don't get many chances to be wrong. Here's the trap. If you wait for the ship's own radar to catch the sea-skimmer, you might have about a minute and a half. That's the run from first skin track to impact at high supersonic speed when the missile appears inside the horizon. In that window, you must confirm the track, choose weapons, and commit. If your first cue is late, you cascade into rushed choices and every step gets harder. Weapons that need a setup, like mid-course interceptors, lose their best shot. Decoys need spacing. Guns demand precise lead and calm nerves. None of those are friendly to panic. The geometry makes it worse. Radar horizon depends on the height of the antenna and the target. A sea skimmer living a few meters above the water stays masked far longer than a jet at medium altitude. When a fighter like a Su-30 Mk2 launches from a comfortable standoff, tens of kilometers, the ship doesn't see the missile climbing. It only gets the low, fast return when the missile pops into view. That compresses the defender's loop from a layered plan to a last-ditch scramble. Run the mini-story. Two Su-30 Mk2s keep low to stay out of clean radar coverage, then climb just enough to fire. Their KH-31 as drop and drive for the water, switching to sea-skim as soon as the kinematics allow. Now the missiles surf wave clutter at Mach numbers that erase distance in seconds. The destroyer's radar reaches out, but the curve says not yet. The clock starts, and it's the attacker's clock. This is where single-tool defenses fail. Chaff-only responses look good when you have time to build a corridor, but late cues put the cloud in the wrong place, or too late to break the seeker's track. Gun-only bets mean engaging a dart that can pull hard maneuvers while the ship rolls and the horizon chops the return. U.S. testing against this family was serious enough that the Navy bought similar threats as targets, because late detection repeatedly collapsed intercept windows. When the first good track comes at the last moment, kill chains break. A common belief says more missiles overwhelm any ship. Not if the first cue is late. If you don't see the launch platform early, you don't classify the weapon in time, you don't sequence decoys, and you don't give interceptors room to work. Add attackers, and you multiply confusion, not probability of hit, because the defender cannot stack engagements without a clock they control. The variable that matters is the first accurate picture and how far beyond the ship's own horizon that picture reaches. So the answer isn't a bigger missile on the ship. It's an earlier view that spans platforms. Hudner didn't wait for streaks on the waterline. It detected the threat chain before the rails emptied, using off-board sensors that pushed the radar horizon outward and started the defense while the jets still held their weapons. If the problem is time, the solution is stealing it back, before the KH-31A leaves the rail. What if the ship already knew the shooters, the angles, and the likely missiles before the first plume? Not a guess. An outline drawn minutes ahead of time, pinned to the map by sensors that aren't even on the ship. This is how the U.S. kill chain starts moving. Tasked satellites sweep wide and flag a patrol pattern that doesn't fit routine traffic. An E-2D Hawkeye rotates on station, its radar painting a broad swath and pushing clean tracks downrange. On the destroyer, Aegis with its A/SPY-1DV array soaks up returns and emissions near the coast, where sea clutter and land reflections would normally hide low flyers. Baseline 9 pulls all of it together into one picture, not separate screens, so the watch team sees relationships at a glance. Air tracks, electronic signatures, and flight profiles align and stay aligned as the contacts move. The key is speed. Baseline 9 closes the sensor-to-shooter loop in under 3 seconds, which means threat evaluation and weapon pairing update almost as fast as the target's turn. Across the water, Venezuela brings Su-30 Mk2s with real punch and KH-31A loadouts, but their links are thinner. They lean more on pilot judgment and ground calls than on a shared, automated picture. That creates dead zones in time. When you have to talk through every pivot, you lose seconds. When your track is local to one cockpit, you lose context. The result is powerful jets flying smart tactics, but with more friction in the loop. Baseline 9 changes the pace on the defender's side. It grades threats on approach vectors, speed, altitude, and known weapons for that airframe. It auto-prioritizes shooters, assigns engagements across ranges, and alerts electronic warfare to prepare decoys without waiting for a separate call. The A/SPY1DV handles the clutter close to shore, keeping the low track steady, while the software lines up, intercept windows, and tells operators what can fire, when, and at which geometry. Human judgment still rules, but the machine sets the table in real time. Run the timeline. A satellite cue marks the patrol. The E2D refines the plot and confirms the type of aircraft. Hudner's Aegis correlates those tracks with emissions that match the Su-30 Mk2's profile and flags a loadout likely to include KH-31A. Before any smoke trail, the system classifies a probable anti-ship run. That flips the defense to a layered plan that starts with deception. Nulka deploys offboard and throws a ship-sized radar return far from the hull. Chaff follows on a staggered clock, not in one panic cloud, building false corridors the seekers will want to chase. Electronic attack shapes the background, lowering the ship's signature while the decoy looks fat and inviting. Now the missiles appear, and the weapon's timeline triggers without shouting over radios. SM-6 reaches first, guided by the fused track and its own active seeker, taking a mid-course shot while the threats are still far enough for a clean intercept. If any make it through that ring, ESSM Block 2 cuts in with agile, active homing at medium range, chasing sea-skimmers even if the ship rides a swell and briefly loses the return. Only if a leaker survives does Phalanx light up, its own radar closing the last gap with tungsten at close range. Each layer fires because the picture says it's time, not because someone guessed. And that's the point. Faster information decided which layer spoke and when. The network preemptively ranked the contacts, drew missiles off with Nulka, killed the leaders with interceptors, and let CIWS end what was left. The message that goes back across the water isn't fireworks, it's timing. Their attack window closed before they launched, and that's what discourages the next try. Modern naval wins are measured in seconds. In the age of digital warfare, power is no longer measured by how many missiles a nation can launch, but by how quickly it can see, decide, and act. Integrated sensors and training stole those seconds back from Mach 3, turning a sprint into a controlled sequence. The Aegis combat system acted like a nervous system, compressing detection to engagement into minutes with a layered response and calm execution. If you want more breakdowns of how timing beats tonnage, subscribe and tell me which system you want dissected next. Integrated beats armed when the clock is the battlefield.